Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Grace Fletcher. I'm an aspiring author currently working on my very first novel project, Project AOS. Project AOS is a young adult religious fantasy / science fiction novel with themes of found family, grief, and self-acceptance. But in today's video, we will be going over my tips and tricks for how to world build. So I know a lot of writers have different perspectives when it comes to world building. Some writers get out as much as they possibly can about the world, going into the very minute details before they even start writing their book. Some simply just open a document and kind of make things up as they go and figure that kind of stuff out later down the line. But I wanted to let you guys know that all the advice that I offer in this video may or may not resonate with you. Everyone writes differently, everyone edits differently, everyone world builds differently, and I think it's important in this community to only take in the stuff that helps you, and if something doesn't help you, to just kind of not worry about it. You don't need to write a certain way just because someone says that it's the best way to do things. My biggest tip in this video, and something that I've actually realized as I've been writing, is to think of your world as a character. When you go to design a character, you not only think of their physical descriptions, you think about their personality, their motivations, the choices that they make, the experiences that they've had in the past. How do they go about making relationships with other people? How do they work in those relationships with other people? You think about a lot more on the deeper level than you do on the surface level. You also want to make sure that your characters are complex, that they have differences in the way that their morals and their actions play out throughout the story. You can't just have a character that's completely good or completely bad all the time, because people are imperfect. And if you think about all those things when you go into designing your world, you're going to end up with a lot more complex of a world. First, obviously, you're going to worry about the physical setting. What does it look like? Now, there are multiple approaches and multiple different orders where you can figure out all of these different things for your world. And I think that overall they all interplay with each other, and some of the things you may discover about the culture or about the government may influence what the world looks like. But essentially, what you're going to need to figure out is your world's physical description, what it looks like, what it's called, basically all the basic things that are on the surface level of your world. But outside of that, you're also going to need to figure out your world's why. Just like a character, a world needs to be complex. It's not going to have a good side or a bad side. There are going to be multiple actions that the world and society and government is taking in your world to accomplish a goal that your character may not necessarily believe in, especially with dystopia, fantasy, science fiction, and works that focus on critiquing society as it is. It's very important for worlds to not just be bad, or to not just be evil to be evil. The best villains, the best antagonists in books have a backstory. They have a reason for why they are acting the way they are. They have experiences that have changed their relationships with the people around them, potentially making them behave the way that they do. And your world is going to be arranged just like that. For your world's government specifically, maybe it runs a specific way because of events that have culminated within its peoples in the past. Maybe it's a conglomeration of different cultures, and that has caused a lot of conflict. Maybe they've been through a war that has caused them to view relationships with other countries or relationships with their own people more harshly or strictly. There are lots of different aspects that affect why a government works the way it does, and you need to really discover all of these when you're planning out the history of your world. Because world building isn't just what your world looks like now, it's the conglomeration of the events and history that your world has been throughout the past that have resulted in the world that your character sees today. In addition, if you think of your world as a character, you're going to get a better perspective of how different characters think about the world that they're in. For example, when you think about a person, everyone has a different relationship with any given person. They could be complete strangers, close friends, they could be enemies, they could be not really gelling with each other, not people that interact a lot. And if you think about that as in your characters, different characters are going to have different ideas and views of the world that they live on based off the experiences that they've had in that world. If they grew up facing the harsh realities of the world and being kind of in the bad end of the situation and the way your world runs, they're probably going to have a lot more critical take on what the world looks like. If they've always been raised believing that the world is good and kind of getting the good end of how the world interacts with them, they're probably going to have a more difficult time accepting critiques of the world that they live in, especially when it's benefited them so much in the past. past. Another big thing when it comes to world building is how to actually world build and inject that world building into your novel. My best tip to make sure that you don't world build too much or too little is to basically focus on your main character itself. Your main character is only going to get to know one small section of the world, and the further you get out from that, the less knowledge they're going to possess about the way the world works. So you want to create your world around your character. When you go into a first draft, I recommend figuring out all of the things about the world that directly impact your character. These are things like setting. What does it look like? Family structures. What do they look like? What is their specific town look like? What are things that specifically affect them about the way the government runs, specifically in more dystopian-centered stories? However, when you go to write your second draft, or draft successively after that, you can focus on the more indirect things that impact your character. These may be small events that have happened in the past that may have ended up resulting in a certain government structure or a certain rule or regulation that the character finds themselves in conflict with. In addition to what I said before, different places have different relationships to the world. They're going to have different cultures and different ways they view it based on the way their setting impacts their relationship with the society as a whole. Overall, when it comes to world building, it's very, very important not to get too caught up in the nitty-gritty details. It's very easy to become paralyzed by the amount of choices that you have to make when it comes to your novel, but simply understanding that the most important things to your character are going to be the most important things to your reader is really going to help you when it comes to world building. When it comes to directly injecting world building in your novel and explaining things to your reader, I highly recommend avoiding anything that sounds like the character, regardless of whether it's written in first person or third, is talking to the reader. The book shouldn't feel like it's focused and designed for the reader. It should just feel like a story that the reader has found themselves in that they're getting to see play out on the page. Hello everyone, it is Editing Hannah here, coming to you from the future. Unfortunately, I forgot to film an outro to this video. I don't know how I forgot to do that, but we are going to go ahead and get into that now. I did realize that I have one more tip for you guys that I realized today, and that is if you want to really understand how to build the history of your own world, it's important for you to study real world history and to kind of look at the interplay of events and how one thing that happens in one area or in one topic or focus can affect something completely different over there. So I think that it's really cool to study history and kind of use events that you've seen in the past or that you've looked at to kind of influence how you frame your own worlds. And I think it's also very helpful to kind of give you a baseline of how to design a history of a world, because it's definitely intense, that's for sure. But anyway, if you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you watched all the way towards the end. If you made it to the end, leave a comment down below if you have any tips for world building. I'm sure that all of us would much appreciate it, because at the end of the day, we are all struggling writers, all just trying to figure out the best way for us to write our stories. Also, if you have any further questions for me about world building or just questions in general, I'm sure that there are a lot of lovely people here in the community that would love to help you out. So anyway, I am so excited. I am so glad that you clicked on this video and watched the end. Comment down below the World Earth emoji if you made it to the end of this video. I am so glad that you guys voted on this topic for this month. This is a reminder that if you ever want to contribute or kind of choose the videos for this channel, I do pick one additional video a month, so subscribe and definitely check posts every so often to see if there's a poll up for the following month. I usually post on the first Monday of the month, or like the Monday before if the month starts later in the week. But anyway, I'm so glad that you guys chose this video. It was really fun to film, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Bye!